and today we're here to do Did It Deserve 1 Star, the series I do where if a book gets 1 star bombed, then I review it to see if I think that from a craft perspective it deserved the 1 stars. I have to find a shorter name for that. Today's book is Crown of Starlight by CAIT CORRAIN'S. You may have heard about CAIT CORRAIN'S. Unfortunately, this author did something like astronomically awful. I will, if you don't know what happened with CAIT CORRAIN'S, I will leave a link down below to Jiran J. Zhao's videos addressing the entire thing. The book is no longer being published either in the US or in the UK. Her agent, Rebecca Potos, her agent, dropped CAIT CORRAIN'S, but I thought I haven't done a Did It Deserve 1 Star in a while. I keep meaning to, and then like the last opportunity for me to do this was Nate Lemke, and I tried to read that book and it was so terrible I quit. That book was already published, this one was not. However, I have an e-arc of this and I have no recollection of how I got this. I don't have any email from NetGalley saying your request was approved, so I don't think I requested it. I don't have any memory of requesting it, but I was like, don't I have that book, an e-arc of that book? And I did. I had NetGalley access, so I was like, oh, well, alright, let's do a Did It Deserve 1 Star. We've got to find a different name for this series. This series is where if a book gets review bombed, which means a bunch of people go and 1 star it en masse, typically on Goodreads, I then review the book. Getting harder to do this anyway because Goodreads recently, as usual with Goodreads, like the way they do things is just wacky business. But I do want to say it is interesting to me that they have started stalling review bombing now. Stalled the review bombing for CAIT CORRAIN'S book. They started deleting reviews. But as Kaylin Barron, who wrote Cinderella is Dead, which was a delight, as Kaylin Barron pointed out, her book was getting review bombed by a bunch of racists. Goodreads was not stepping in to do anything about it. So I don't really understand the shocking promptness now as opposed to all the other review bombs that we've witnessed. Again, I want to do a video on Goodreads being ridiculous separately, so we'll save that for a later date. What the author did, if you don't know, was target her peers, fellow authors. Particularly, the majority of them seem to be debut authors she was going to be a debut author, and all of their books were coming out like within the first 5 months or so in 2024. But especially non-white authors. CAIT CORRAIN'S set up fake Goodreads accounts and negatively reviewed their books by sock puppet accounts while also boosting her own book. The affected debut books were So Let Them Burn by Kamilah Cole, The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste, To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by X Chang, Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, Mistress of Lies by KM Enright, Road to Ruin by Hana Lee, and The Empire Wars by Akure Phenix. Unfortunately, she also targeted Thea Guanzon, who wrote The Hurricane Wars, I think who was her friend. They also targeted R.M. Virtues, who also writes Greek retellings but is an indie author. So what other motive is there other than jealousy plus racism there? Katrina Kwan, Danielle L Jensen. I only have an arc of one of these debuts. I know the community is trying to boost these debuts to try to offset any harm. The intention was to harm their debuts, so we are trying to boost them now, and I do have an arc of one of them. I was approved for one of them, and it's To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods, X Chang, and my friend Kat says that I'm gonna like this. This has things that very particularly appeal to me, which is great because I thought so by the synopsis. I'm getting off topic. Sorry. The point is I'm gonna try to do reviews of those as well and hopefully help them find their readership, which is something that Kate actively tried to prevent. Did It Deserve 1 Star is sort of a fun personal exercise for me because it's an exercise in when a person does something bad, I'm trying to figure out if I can not let an author's actions affect my reviews. If I'm not reading into things in their book, trying to find evidence for the things they've done outside the book. I am a person, I have biases, and I try to reflect in these videos on if the actions of the author are affecting my feelings on the book. It's a thought exercise. It's certainly interesting as a reviewer. Something that is going to affect my reading of this book though, and did, is I know shockingly little of Greek mythology. I guess it's not shocking to anybody who knows me. Since I grew up Fundy, that's not really that was sort of an iffy territory. Thou shalt not have other gods and all that shit. Anywho, all this to say, I do think that affects my reading of Greek retellings, and this is a Greek retelling. This is a Greek retelling, but sci-fi, of Ariadne and Dionysus. All I I know about Dionysus is that he is the god of wine. That's it. I know even less about Ariadne, which is to say nothing. I do think that Dionysus would be proud of me as I'm reviewing this, sitting here drinking wine while reviewing this. I know about as much about wine as I know about Dionysus. This is a rosé. That's what I know. If you're looking to make yourself into a version of Dionysus, you can join me in drinking the fruits of Dionysus by checking out Bright Cellars. You can't actually be a Greek god, just so we're clear, but any person can be a wine person with Bright Cellars. Wine can be intimidating. Bright Cellars is the wine club that's dedicated to making it easy to help you learn what you like. Bright Cellars 7-question wine quiz about your tastes helps you match with wines that you will love. Each box comes with cards to help you learn about each bottle. And if you don't like a bottle, I'm sure even Dionysus has preferences. I don't actually know. Again, no knowledge of Greek mythology. No worries, because your Bright Cellars concierge will replace it. If you're looking for the perfect gift to give yourself or the Dionysus in your life, you can give the gift that keeps on giving, Bright Cellars. We're also in cozy season, which means more cooking and more dinner parties. If you're a social person, and if you're a social person, you might want to hold a wine tasting at home. Or if you're not so social, me, grab some wine for yourself and curl up with your favorite Greek retelling. I think this rosé goes good with Punderworld. Bright Cellars is giving my followers their first 6-bottle subscription box, usually $150 for just $55. Click the link in the description and take the quiz to get started today, and thank you so much to Bright Cellars for sponsoring today's video, and also for the wine that will carry me through this video. I'm gonna give you the synopsis for this book, but first let me tell you something. Moniza Hossein brought up a really good point about how cover artists, like, there's been a lot of talk about this CAIT CORRAIN issue, and they've been using the cover of the book, but when we talk about books, in our discussions, we are not actually crediting the cover artist. So I appreciate Moniza for bringing that up, and I wanted to go ahead and credit the cover artist because the cover art is gorgeous. I'm gonna sit here and have this sitting next to me for the next however long I need to credit the artist from now on. So help hold me accountable. This art was done by Diana Dvorak, who I will link below, and then the art direction, which is like taking the art and creating a cover out of it, was done by Rachel Ake, also linked below. Okay, so the synopsis reads: raised amongst monsters, Ariadne Tholos, crown princess of the interstellar Cretan Empire, fears nothing more than becoming one herself, but trapped within the labyrinth of imperial politics and puritanical restrictions of her father, King Emperor Minos, and his totalitarian regime of militarized death cultists, she might not have another option. When the chance arises to take her fate into her own hands, Ariadne seizes it, only to find herself on the run, injured, alone, and in desperate need of a miracle. Enter Dionysus, the exiled god of wine. Cheers, bitch. Madness and revelry. He needs a Cretan royal to join his cult in order to end his banishment and return home to Olympus. Their meeting is the opportunity he's been waiting for, but there's just one problem. The Cretans are heretics, and Ariadne is no exception. With a vengeful Minos closing in, Ariadne strikes a bargain. She'll marry Dionysus and join his cult. In exchange, he'll hide her away in the only corner of the galaxy beyond Minos' reach, Olympus itself. But while Ariadne can handle the deadly politicking of the Olympians, a life of repression has left her unprepared for how powerfully Dionysus's oh man, I need a drink. Uninhibited debauchery will call to her darkest desires and make her question parts of her identity that she's kept locked away her entire life. Okay, again, I do not have a good knowledge of Greek mythology. I have read some retellings. Again, shout out Punderworld. I do have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint something on my shelf somewhere. And obviously I've read Percy Jackson. But I don't really have a good understanding or knowledge of Greek mythology itself. I sometimes find like retellings fun to read. This one in particular was I think this could have been done better, especially by changing its beginning, like as in the first whole 20% of the book where we're just with Ariadne and we don't see Dionysus until like 20% after she's done this like escape, and Ariadne is not carrying the story on her own for that first 20%. It's honestly sort of miserable to read. I kept falling asleep. It just was really in general very boring. I think they should have switched around the beginning a little bit to actually add in Dionysus in some way, and then also added in Ariadne and sort of like did a little back and forth for that first 20% to sort of like finally merge them together. I just would have had more fun that way. Not only was it boring, so she lives in Crete, which I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really sure exactly what I was supposed to be picturing, because we're told like it's the island of Crete, obviously, but then we talk about like comm bands, airlocks, and holographic shields, some sort of spacey shield thing, and it wasn't really written in a way that I felt like like meshed like Greek retelling and sci-fi in a cohesive way. This was compared to Gideon the Ninth, at least by the author, which is something that really nails the combination of things in a very specific way that is not happening here. Again, Ariadne is the daughter of Minos? Her dad, who is always threatening to kill her, and I wasn't really sure what was stopping him or why that wouldn't be allowed. The politics, like, let's be so serious, the politics and the religion honestly went sort of immediately over my head. Just the way it was fed to us was fed in not a way that sticks. Although again, I wonder if that is very subjective, and I wonder if the reason it's so subjective to me is because again, I am not a Greek mythology educated girly. I'm left to wonder if a lot of these retellings honestly are relying on the reader to know Greek mythology as well as the author does. Sort of like the author is trying to like take a shortcut to building out their lore by relying on what is already known by the people who do know a lot about Greek mythology. Sort of like how in fan fiction there's already things that are like baseline level of knowledge, like you're reading fan fiction because you already have like a connection with this, like with Raylo, which this author was a Raylo fan fiction writer. There's sort of like this already established connection with certain things, like you already know, right? And that's why you read it, is because it's familiar. You don't have to reestablish any new baseline, you already have your baseline. And then from there, you do cool and new things jumping off of that. I feel like I am not at baseline here. So again, it feels sort of like a shortcut was taken using lore that's already known, I assume. But it's known to them, not to me. If you're going to write Greek retellings and want to appeal to a broader audience, write for the girlies that get it and for the girlies that don't. Or don't. Do whatever you want. I'm just saying that a lot of this was lost on me, and if I wasn't lost, if the author had filled in more gaps, maybe I would have enjoyed it more. Okay, I'm back to finish this, and I have to say one thing before I continue. I was talking to my friend about this book and my experience reading it, and I realized that I don't say Dionysus correctly. I say it Dionysus, and it's Dionysus. So I'm sure that you all have been, all you Greek girlies out there, Greek mythology girlies, have been cringing for the last however long, and I'm so sorry. I will say it correctly from here on out, hopefully. All right, so we're on Crete. Ariadne? Oh fuck, see, I don't know how to say anything. Is on Crete, and she is staring at her brother, the Minotaur. I don't know how to say anything, actually. Words are fun. And she is staring at her brother through a you know, hollow plexiglass, whatever thing, sci-fi glass. And she's, you know, reflecting upon her life, how they both feel imprisoned because he's imprisoned as he's a Minotaur, forced to be not human and eat people. And he has a mouthful, a bovine mouthful of shark teeth, which is an interesting descriptor. I wasn't picturing him like that, though. I was definitely picturing him as a Lionel from Zelda Breath of the Wild. Immediately when we start this book, we learn how cringy the writing is. I'm really sorry, but I don't like this. Honestly, this is the kind of writing when if I'm reading fan fiction and the author of it writes like this, and this is a very common thing you'll see, that this is like a stylistic choice in fan fiction that I do not jive with at all. I don't like it. Guard's upper lips are frozen stiff, but anyone can see how bored they are, which, fair enough. This is how I'm gonna read all the lines, because that's how it read to me. Despite the chill and the foreboding sky and my miserable retinue, this is my favorite place in the whole wide world. She's at the beach. Well, okay. My whole wide world consists of the Palace of Knossos, the Isle of Knossos, and the Acropolis at our capital city, so it's not like I have a lot of options. And then it says she's affecting my best. I have no thoughts and my head is empty expression. Another one is realizing that I'm being gaslit by my entire world doesn't make it easier to deal with, but hey, at least I still have some part of my soul. You know those older style like Disney shows? I don't know what's on Disney now. I don't have, we watch, you know, like Ratatouille and shit. Those older style Disney shows where everybody talks in that cadence and then there's a laugh track at the end. That's how it felt reading the narration in this book. It's really cringy. So her dad Minos is the ruler of Crete, and he is part of some sort of cult that I think worships the Moirae. I don't know, it was kind of unclear, and something that I don't remember because all of this went right over my head and it was never reinforced, like brought up again in the text, so I don't really remember what happened. But for some reason, I think her mom had sex with somebody and had that Minotaur, and then her other brother is dead. Her actual dad's like son is dead, so now Ariadne's the heir, but he hates Ariadne and he beats Ariadne, and I'm like, why doesn't he just kill Ariadne? What's stopping him? That's never really answered. And he threatens her, and it says, the heir goes out of the room. My status as heir affords me a small amount of protection. Murdering me out of hand would raise questions in the wider galaxy about how valuable his first heir actually was to him. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? I feel like this book is holding me at arm's length, and it's over here with the information, and I'm over here like, hello? Like peering in the window trying to understand a conversation that's happening behind the glass. You know what I mean? And it's possible that I'm just stupid. I don't know. Is it the book's fault? Is it my fault? Who fucking knows? The thing that I know was not done well here is the religious aspect. So like Ariadne is supposed to be like non-sexual according to everybody who is in power over her in her life. And it says, the doctrine of the order is riddled with inconsistencies that the sisters, she has like 3 sisters following her around that are part of the cult she's allegedly a part of. The sisters can't quite explain away. And in the 21 cycles I've been alive, I've seen no evidence that the amount of blood my father and his sycophants spill has done anything to convince the Moire to forgive us for centuries of worshipping the false gods in their stead. I don't understand this religion at all. The Moire exist. The other gods also exist. So is it that the Moire are jealous? It's hard for me to see. You have to explain all of this because I grew up fundy. So like I very, very specifically understand my religion. So my understanding is that you can't worship another god because those gods do not exist. So when you say false gods to me, it means a god that does not exist. Are the Moire jealous? Why are they jealous? I don't really understand the dynamic here. So I guess they worship the Moire while other people worship the Theois, the Zeus and them, the pantheon. So what the Crete people do is they sacrifice Athenians to the Minotaur for the Moire, but it's not really for the Moire because it's a cult, and Ariadne understands that it's a cult, but then she still holds on to this purity culture belief, even though she just said that the doctrine of the order is riddled with inconsistencies. We don't really do a good job of deconstructing religious belief here because we never really establish what the religious beliefs are, and I feel like the only reason we were setting up Ariadne to be like modest and pure is so that we could have that trope of now the impure person is having sex with the god of orgies, and it felt very shallow and not like an actual character arc. It felt like, and now I set up these puppets to do this. It felt like people playing The Sims instead of writing character arcs. You know what I mean? So here it says, one of the most ironclad tenets of the Order of the Moire is unimpeachable chastity. To hear them tell it, sex outside of wedlock is the gateway to all other sins, and sex within wedlock is a duty I must someday perform for the sake of furthering my bloodline and nothing else. Apparently men are allowed to enjoy the experience a bit so long as it's in a Moire-fearing way because that's just how it is. Now stop asking questions. And I'm like, wait, so she does have questions? So why? She only seems to hold to these beliefs once we get to the parts where she's watching like Dionysus's revels where people are having sex like openly, and then she starts feeling like, oh my god, this is so awful and bad because sex, and this is disgusting. But like when she's actually in Crete, it doesn't feel like she feels that way. And in fact, she talks about how she reads like, you know, erotica. The first few books I read were titillating enough to make my heart race and my face flush, and at the time I felt tremendously daring for even having them on my tablet. Cretan literature tends to be as dull as paint, but these stories were fun, full of high-stakes drama, fantastical adventure in imaginary worlds, and scintillating romance. Naturally, I developed a bit of an addiction. I don't like using addiction like that. I wish the editor would have taken that out. I knelt on the stone floor, reciting the prayer of atonement for lustful thoughts on repeat for hours until my voice gave out and my eyes blurred with exhaustion. So like randomly she'll bring up feeling like she needs to atone, but I wish that we would have had a good understanding of her religious beliefs and had it come up in different ways and not just about sexuality. Because the Moires aren't just goddesses of chastity, right? So like what else do you believe about these gods? Then I thought we're still only the first 20%. I thought we were going somewhere that seemed interesting because we started talking about things like words, knowledge, information are the most dangerous dangerous things in the cosmos. If you know a secret other people don't, they'll want to know it too. Maybe they'll try to buy it, maybe they'll try to take it, or maybe they'll try to hurt you to keep you from telling anyone else. And she's told by Daedalus, who's the father of Icarus, you need to be sneaky and careful. I have complete faith that you're capable of both. So I thought we were going a direction where we're like about to find out that Ariadne is also like under the surface very sneaky, which I thought, okay, that's going to be in contrast with her religious belief, right? So we're going to have to deal with like how she, you know, feels like, okay, well, I'm sinning because I'm lying. We didn't do that. Not only did we not do that, like contrasting those things, we didn't make her like that. She's not like some, I thought, oh, we're setting this up to make like Ariadne be like secretly, she's been defying her father and she's been gathering all of this intel to make this great plan. And instead it was just like spur of the moment. I have decided that I would like to get the fuck away from my dad and I'm going to rely on a lot of other people's help to get me there instead of like dealing in secrets to get herself out of it. You know what I mean? So her dad's like, you are going to send the Athenians to the Minotaur to die this time around instead of Daedalus, because normally he makes Daedalus do it while threatening Daedalus's son Icarus. Ariadne's like, Daedalus, I have a plan. I'm gonna release the Athenians. You get us out of here. You also get out of here and I will run away. So the Athenians show up and they have to do this pre-murder ceremony and then do a pre-murder party and then do the murdering. At the pre-murder ceremony where there's like blood drinking on Minos's part, she sees a guy and she's like, wow, that guy is super hot. I am feeling super horny just looking at him. And then that guy is like, King Minos, I am Prince Theseus and I have come to beg for my people's lives. And Minos is like, well, you are Athenian, so you are here, and if you want your people to live, then why don't you just kill the Minotaur? And Theseus is like, how do you fucking expect me to kill the goddamn Minotaur? And like, this is like a whole production, right? Like Minos is very into this whole production. In fact, there's this thing where they have holy bones where they take, and this I actually liked, they took the bones of the Athenians, gild them with precious metals and fashion them into jewelry. So like she wears like this collar thing made of the dead Athenians' bones, which is like really sick. It says they're one part trophy, one part intimidation tactic. But then it also goes on to constantly describe how big and cumbersome her breasts and hips are. And I'm like, okay, stop. We don't need to talk about how annoyingly big your titties are for several paragraphs. Okay, so the 14 Athenians are there. Theseus is there. He's like, I've come to beg you for my people's lives. And Minos is like, nah. And the thing is that they knew each other, like their dads got together, so they like hung out as like 12-year-old kids. And Theseus was rude to her then. And she's like, oh, I remember him. He is super hot. I would like to fuck him. No, wait, I can't do that because I am prim and proper and not a lustful person, even though I read erotica regularly. And Theseus is like, haven't enough of us died? Haven't we paid enough? And Minos is like, no, you have not. I could bleed every last Athenian dry and it still wouldn't be enough. Your people took my heir, my son, from me. So apparently they killed his heir. I don't remember this at all. You will go into the labyrinth and defeat the Minotaur, or you will die. And if you die, then perhaps Aegis will finally understand what it's like to lose the only thing that matters to him. And Aegis is the father of Theseus, the king of Athens. While awaiting execution, the Athenians are locked into a secure suite of rooms in the palace basement, except when they're let out to go to a party, the pre-murder party, and get drunk, should they wish. So at this party, Ariadne's like, I'm going to tell Theseus, let's team up. I'll get you out of here. You get me out of here. And he's like, all right, if we pull this off, I could make you chief tactician of the Athenian fleet or our future queen. And she's like, oh, I would love to be future queen, because she's really stupid and thinks this guy is for real. She goes and talks to her dad. Her dad once again threatens her, and it says, it wouldn't do for people to question his treatment of his current heir. It would be a PR disaster. What do you mean? What would happen? Who's more in charge? Would the people rise up? And if so, why haven't they already? If he kind of sucks, like what are the broader implications of that? And also, are we on different planets? Are Crete and Athens on different planets? I actually never found out for sure. What's the dynamic? I'm gonna be real honest, I don't really understand this universe. It wasn't really explained well. So the Athenians, the 14 of them, 16 of them, go into the labyrinth, and Daedalus, Icarus, and Ariadne are like, all right, got this plan. Theseus is in on it. He's gonna help us out. He's gonna have to kill the Minotaur, and then we're all gonna swoop out of here, right? Okay, well, Theseus gets like kind of mustache twirly all of a sudden. He shoots the Minotaur in the knee with a blaster, and then kills her half-brother, the Minotaur, in sort of like a gotcha kind of way, which is like depicted as bad because that's Ariadne's Ariadne's half-brother. But then again, that Minotaur has kind of eaten a bunch of people and is a symbol of Athenian mass murder for Theseus. So if I was supposed to feel bad for Theseus at this point, I did not. So they do, you know, yeet themselves out of there. And then when they're in space, Ariadne is taken prisoner. And Theseus is like, I cannot believe you were so stupid. You actually thought I would marry you. And I'm like, that was stupid. That was. And you know what? If I'm supposed to feel, again, like Theseus is the villain here, he's just trying to help his people. Like if the roles were reversed, that would be like the main character in another book. And we would all be rooting for him like, yeah, kill that Minotaur. Yeah, lie and cheat and steal your way to getting your people a victory after they've been murdered repeatedly for a really long time. So she's like, oh fuck, I gotta get the fuck out of here. They're on a different planet. They're somewhere. They're stopped. She runs into the entertainment district, which is really confusing for her that there's an entire entertainment district somewhere. And she runs straight into the hangout of Dionysus and his, what are they called? Maenads. And she hides in a crate of wine because of course, right? It's Dionysus. Of course, there's crates of wine everywhere immediately. And it says, again, a really cringy line where it says, but no, with 4 O's, 4 of them. I had just had to stick to my principles and now I'm going to die surrounded by wine bottles. Okay, all right. So Theseus shows up and he's like, where is Ariadne? I think she ran in here. Check these crates. And the Maenads are like, fuck off, man. You don't give any orders here. And so he starts being a dick to the Maenads. You're all going to be sorry, Theseus says. Dionysus comes out and he's like, A, I wasn't talking to you. B, I am now. C, did you just call my Maenads bitches? And I'm like, oh, well, this is kind of cringy. Like, at least it's more lively now that he's here, but at the same time, it's still cringy, so that kind of sucks. And Dionysus just decides, you know what? I'm just gonna be nice to this human person, even though I am a long time old immortal being. Sure, random woman jumping into my crates of wine, I've decided to be extremely nice to. He's like, I'm the god of wine, madness, and general revelry, amongst other things. It's the ladies who just left are my Maenads, and I just want to make sure you're all right. But why? Ariadne says. I thought it might be entertaining. Okay, I feel like we could have done a better response than that, but all right. He's so kind and charming. Every word he says, every bit of kindness he shows me makes me want to like him, to trust him. It just feels like we're being spoon-fed that. Like, he's so kind and charming, isn't he? You better think that too. So apparently the people who follow him are a cult. I don't really understand why. I think that the cult is taking on a different meaning than I am used to it meaning. So again, maybe I'm just stupid. They try to teach her some stuff. They're like, we're the cult of Dionysus, and Dionysus is a real fine chap. Also, did you know that the original 6 Theoi, King Zeus, Queen Hera, Lord Hades, Lord Poseidon, Lady Demeter, and Lady Hestia, and Lady Aphrodite have been here since the time untold, but the rest of the pantheon was born later. Lord Dionysus is a young god, but not nearly as young as he looks. Love him or fear him, everyone who meets Lord Dionysus bows to his divinity in the end. And then they also tell her, they like immediately just decide to take her in like a lost puppy and take care of her. It says, once I no longer looked like death incarnate, who Elanthe tells me is a sleep-deprived workaholic named Thanatos. And I'm like, what? Who's Thanatos? I don't know shit about this stuff. This whole section felt a little unpolished. Like, and again, I'm reviewing an arc and they always say like, don't quote arcs, and here I've been doing nothing but that. Don't quote arcs because it might change. I hope they had plans to change this line, because when he talks to her, it says, his tone makes me tingly. Okay, cool. Woof. So hanging out with them is awkward for her because they are all very like touchy-feely with each other. She comes out of her room one day and they're all like laying on the couch together, like being very affectionate. And she's like, am I interrupting something? One of the Maenads, Ciala, says, only Galen's anatomy. Stop right there. Stop right there. No, I don't like it. I don't like when we take real world TV shows and then change them slightly to fit into a fake world. I hate it. It feels lazy. It feels cheap. I don't like it. It feels like, you know what it feels like? You know that show Zoe 101? How they didn't have like Apple licensing, so they put the Pear? That's what that feels like. It feels like a kid's show. Stop it. That's not the only one, by the way. There's another one later and it's worse. And they're like, oh, do people not do casual affection over on your world? And I'm like, no. So what do y'all know about the Moire worshipping people? Is it very little? Why? I don't understand. What are the dynamics here? My face burns hotter than the core of an energy cell. For all my bluster, there's so much skin on display, and the Olympian's humor is so overtly sexual. She doesn't like dick jokes. I get it. Okay, so King Emperor Minos Tholos of the Cretan Empire, she learns from the news, has issued a statement accusing Athens of violating the treaty between two empires. The treaty that, of course, leads to Athenians getting murdered regularly, but alright. And apparently Theseus has like a fake Ariadne that he is holding and being like, Minos, you have to stop attacking us because I have your daughter. And the news says, should these allegations prove true, it will be the second time in less than a decade Athens has interfered with the heir apparent of House Tholos, a fact that has interstellar conflict scholars concerned about the ongoing stability of the galaxy. What? Wait, what do these two, are they different worlds, have to do with the stability of the galaxy? What do those two worlds do that would, so if we just erased them, like if Zeus just went poof, lightning them out of existence, right? What are the effects on the rest of the galaxy? What do you mean? Explain! Can I hear from one of these conflict scholars, please? Because I would like to know their expert opinion. Then she gets caught by Cretan spec ops, the book's words. But don't worry, Dionysus yoinks her back, and then they enter the Styx, which is a part of space. Dionysus tells her his backstory. His mom was immortal, and Hera got jealous because Zeus fucked his mom, and his mom got pregnant, and then Hera convinced Zeus to appear to Dionysus' mom in his true form, which caused Dionysus' mom to burn to ash. And then Zeus scooped up, I guess, fetus Dionysus and put him in the primordial ooze, and then he was incubated there until he was born. Apparently, if you spend a cycle bathed in power like that, it's enough to grant you full godhood, and that's how he became a god. Cool. And she's like, I can't help but notice all the places where his story and mine mirror each other though, and I wonder how many other families Zeus has wrecked, how many people he has hurt like this. I'm like, wait, where do you two mirror each other? I'm confused. I'm gonna need you to start spelling things out for me because apparently I'm too stupid to get this book. Then it explains like the hierarchy of where magic and shit came from here. Divinity stems from chaos came the primordials, from them came the Moire and the Titans, and from the Titans came both the Theoi and humanity, and the Theoi is like Zeus and them. So is the problem that the Moire want to be more important than the Theoi? But then she meets the Moire later and they don't seem to feel that way. I don't understand any of this. They go to some planet, I guess, and they hang out there for a while, and she like gets used to she doesn't get used to it. She gets introduced to what a Dionysus revel looks like, which is basically a party with an orgy. She does not take part. It says things like, I drop my hands to cover my arms across my chest, hiding the evidence of my perversion. Her nipples are hard. Wicked and wanton girl, shrieks Sister Akaya in the back of my mind, you debase yourself with lust. And then also another voice, give in, it says in counterpoint to the sisters caterwauling, give in and free yourself. So basically this author is writing purity culture as if it's like an angel and a devil on your shoulder. I'm like, oh my god, this is the worst attempt at writing like the internal conflict of purity culture that I have ever seen from somebody who's like actively trying to write, against purity culture. This is failing. So she goes to one of the parties and there's ecstasis, which is ecstasy. And so she's doing ecstasy and she ends up making out with Dionysus. And she's like, I don't want to accept his gifts and surrender to his power, even though I really like kissing him. And then it talks about like the power dynamic of worshiping Dionysus. When he stands next to humans like me, he's always the more powerful being. He can't see how dangerous it is to fully rely on someone else for protection, with no guarantee that said protection won't be revoked without warning. Even if it looks like I'm getting the better deal, the balance of power between us will always be in his favor. And I'm like, okay, but so do you believe in the Moire? And how is the Moire different? And so after her like making out with him while she's on ecstasy, she's like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. The sisters were right about one thing. Sex is dangerous and wanting it is a failure of the discipline I need in order to keep myself safe. And I'm like, what? Since what? That's what you believe? Since when? I don't know. Like what she believes about sex and because of the Moire is kind of wishy-washy. If the Moire really feel that way, like why? So like in fundamentalist Christianity purity culture, we're taught purity because the highest you can get to in your marriage, like the most godlike and God honoring you can be in your marriage is to have both people be virgins and only having sex with each other ever. And like sex is viewed as a form of worship. That's what we're told. And if you sleep with somebody somebody else, then you have like tainted the sex that you're supposed to be having with your spouse, which is again a form of worship. So like, I don't understand what the beliefs about sex are regarding when you worship the moire, so I'm just not really understanding, and you need to explain it. I don't get it. Like, again, this is like, I feel like I'm reading fan fiction for a piece of media that I never watched. It would be like me being like, oh, let me go watch some, or let me go read some Hannibal fanfic, but I've never watched Hannibal. So they talk about like what the future plan is, and I'm like, it took you this long? I don't understand why. Like, what is your long-term plan, Ariadne? You're on the run from your dad. What is your long-term plan? What are you planning to do with your life? And apparently her long-term plan is just, I want to be protected. And I'm like, but okay, but like, couldn't you just have him set you up somewhere to be, okay, fine. And she's like, I would like to do something for you since you are protecting me. You have all the power in this arrangement. If you want me to trust you, then we need to shift the balance between us. And he's like, okay, listen, so Hera made it so that I can't be part of the pantheon, and I have to, in order to be part of the pantheon, I have to have devotees within the governing body of each polis, which includes Crete. He's like, ironic, isn't it, that I got kicked out of my home for wanting to fit in there? And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know why you want to fit in there. I don't know what it, like, you don't seem to have any sort of connection to the home. I don't get it. He's like, there's one place where your dad's military might and all of his money can't reach you. And she's like, Olympus, I gasp. Since you are part of the governing body of Crete, if you join my cult, then I have all of the standards that Hera set that I need to meet in order to become part of the pantheon. And I just want to remind you that this is the synopsis. We are now 40% through this book, and it took us this long to just catch up to the basic synopsis. Okay. And he's like, all right, as the Moire would have it, you are a member of the government of Crete. You are the person I needed. And she's like, but I don't worship you. And he's like, but Hera doesn't know that. Come to Olympus with me, proclaim your worship to the pantheon, and help me return my rightful place. There you'll be beyond your father's reach. Humans cannot enter Olympus without our aid, and none of us would ever help Minos. This will also give you the collateral you want, because if you ever decide to tell Zeus and Hera the truth, I'll spend the rest of my eternity sharing a cage in Tartarus with the Titans. And also the only humans who can live on Olympus are consorts of gods. And he's like, so you have to become my wife in order to go to Olympus and be safe. And I'm like, and immediately her thing is like, would you marry, I don't want you to marry anybody else, and I don't want you to have sex with anybody else. And I'm like, hold on. What is the long-term plan here? Is this forever? They're not having a conversation about whether or not this is forever. You guys are going to be married forever. Now for Dionysus, that's probably not a big deal, except for the fact that she doesn't want him to fuck other people. So he, the god of revelries, orgies, is not gonna be able to fuck other people. Why is he willing to do this for somebody he's known for like a week? I don't understand. And I definitely don't understand what is Ariadne's long-term plan. What do you mean? What are you gonna do? You're gonna live there your whole life being married to Dionysus? That's your plan? See, normally when we do like this marriage, this fake marriage thing, they do it for like a temporary amount of time, and then there's like an end goal that they have to meet, and then by the time we meet that end goal, they've already fallen in love. So like everything's fine because they're actually married, because it's not just a paper thing, because they're actually in love. Here, it's not that. It's like, we're gonna be married for forever, and that's it. Like, wait, hold on. We also don't have a conversation about the fact, how are they gonna get away with this? Obviously, he knows the pantheon is shit and meddlesome and finicky and rude, and they're gonna try to test her and like prove that it's not true, right? And how does he prepare her for this? He doesn't. He just doesn't. She just walks right into a terrible situation, no preparation for how to deal with the fact that people are probably gonna be onto them. Nope, it's fine. And like the first test of this is that, who's the guy who runs? Hermes, the messenger guy? He shows up and they're like, we have to pretend to be married, so you have to drape yourself all over me and worship me and pretend, to be like into me. Hermes is later like, oh yeah, they're nauseating together. And I'm like, listen, I agree that this is nauseating, but it also is confusing because I don't understand. If even just Hermes you have to play this off in front of, and he's like your bro, your ally, right? How are you gonna prepare her to pull this off in front of Hera, who hates you? What? When we get to Olympus, we have these conversations and Hera is obviously suspicious. Again, we have not figured out how we're gonna prepare her for that, and we just don't. And then obviously she fails at it. Zeus is like, oh cool, okay, you're here. Yeah, my wife still fucking hates Dionysus though. Ooh, this is so awkward. So they basically just hang out on Olympus and it's awkward for several chapters. And mostly we're just dealing with like, wow, Hera really hates Dionysus, and she also wants to get information on Crete, but she can't because the issue is that as soon as she showed up, Zeus was like, sure, daughter-in-law, you can live here. The only thing is that you are never allowed to have contact with Crete ever again because I fucking hate them. And I'm like, wait, why don't you just kill them? What is stopping you, Zeus, from killing them? It doesn't seem like the Moirai actually care about the Cretans. Is that what they're called? So what's stopping you from killing them? Is it the Moirai? Can you explain? If not, you don't want anybody in Olympus to have any contact with the Cretans. Why don't you just kill them if you hate them that much? What is stopping you? I don't know the stakes here. I don't get it. What I did like though was Artemis. Artemis shows up and she's like, oh, Dionysus, I should steal every woman in your cult. And I was like, oh, mommy. And that really was the only part of the book that I liked. Ariadne and Dionysus have this like, Dionysus is super into her clearly from the jump, and it felt very insta-lovey for me. I didn't really understand that. And they hang out a bunch and they, you know, watch TV together, and one of he's like, do you want to watch a show with me? And she's like, what show? And he says, It's Always Sunny on Olympus. Stop it. Okay, she eventually admits after sitting through several orgies and pretending to, you know, flirt with each other, even though they never kiss in front of anybody, even though they're supposed to be keeping up this ruse that they are married and that she worships him, otherwise he's gonna get kicked out of the Pantheon, which I don't even understand why he wants to be in the Pantheon, but okay. So she eventually admits she's attracted to him, and they have sex multiple times. Even one time when he's in his woman form, which we like to see a, you know, gender fluid Dionysus. I'm happy about that. That's great. The problem is, just this book sucks. I feel like these sex scenes honestly feel like every other sex scene that you have read recently where there's like light bondage and she gets called a good girl and she has a praise king. Every book is like that now. And I don't know how I expected this book in particular to set itself apart, but I did expect it to set itself apart in that regard. I don't know how exactly, but I think that it's because, I assume that because Dionysus is this orgy god and we kept seeing people like having sex in public whenever one of his revels was going on, and Ariadne kept saying like a deep part of me wants to do that and that and that and all these things she's saying, and all there was like some light bondage and like, oh, we almost might get caught. I thought that this was gonna veer into like Katie Robert territory, Neon Gods, like Dark Olympus, but better, because this is an adult book. I thought that we were going to do a less cringy version of Neon God, and we didn't. I was just very surprised. I was very surprised that there was no orgy that she was a part of. I just thought this book would lean in hard on something. I thought that since it was half-assing the politics, the sci-fi elements, the purity culture deconstruction, and it did insta-love, I thought, okay, maybe what we're gonna lean in hardest here and do the most of is when we get to the sex. And we did not. I was really surprised. I don't really know what this book was trying to set out to do well, but I don't think it did anything well. I wish that it, like, I'm not saying like, oh, I wish this had done like great sex scenes. I just wish it had done something. If I had to pick something that I wish it had done well, it's obviously the purity culture bit, the deconstructing like puritanical belief, but we never really established what it is that Ariadne believes and why. I understand purity culture in relation to like the religion I was a part of and many religions in our world, but I was never offered that understanding in this book. It was very shallow. I don't really get it. It felt like it was relying upon an understanding that I don't have. So then she hears that Hera and Ares and Athena are scheming about the war between Crete and Athens, which they're not supposed to have any contact with Crete. They're like, Athens needs fighters and allies. She's like, why would Hera get involved in that? And it's literally just because Hera fucking hates her and Dionysus. Like, that's it. That's the answer. Like, Athena says, I still don't understand your obsession with her. Yes, she's married to Dionysus, but you're the queen of Olympus. She'll be dead and gone in 60-some cycles at most. You can endure the irritation of her presence till then. You've taken naps longer than that. And like, we get an answer, but it's not a good one. Like, it's just like, well, I hate her. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Also, I don't understand how Hera is the goddess of marriage, but then she's like, I can tell that you guys aren't really married. Okay, then like call them out on it. I don't understand. What are the extents of that? Like, I don't get it. So they go tattle to Zeus because only Athena is supposed to know about Crete. They go tattle to Zeus about Hera Hera and Ares being involved with Crete. And Hera's like, that's not true. And Zeus just believes her because he always picks his wife. Dionysus and his Maenads and Artemis all decide, well, we'll just go step in because people are being massacred, and Hera set it up that way because she knew that Ariadne would feel like she had no choice but to step in, which would get her and Dionysus, like at a minimum, kicked out of Olympus or murdered by Zeus. And so they do. They step in with the whole Crete thing, but they split up. But before we even get to the splitting up part, Artemis decides that she wants to be part of it, which, like, mommy again. She's like, I'm going to hunt Theseus. And I'm like, oh man, that would have made a better book, wouldn't it? I mean, I just really like Artemis, mommy. And before we even do any of this, we get told what literally everybody who is going to war is wearing, like several paragraphs of what everybody is wearing. So Ariadne goes and does like a comm to like blast out to the media, like, Theseus doesn't have me. You guys are going to war over nothing. I've been in Olympus this whole time. I'm married to Dionysus. You're going to war over a lie, and my father wants to kill me. And so she blasts that out, and then Ares shows up, I think like drops her off to her dad. Her dad like beats her half to death. Dionysus shows up, kills her dad. Then Ares pops back out of the shadows, goes to stab Dionysus with like a god-killing weapon, and instead stabs Ariadne because she steps in front of Dionysus because she loves him, and then she dies. The next things that I will list all happen in the span of 20 minutes, okay? She ends up in the Styx, goes to Hades' domain, sees Theseus again, and is like, how dare you? And he's like, I was just trying to protect my people. And I'm like, yeah, Ariadne, he literally was just trying to protect his people. I don't understand why are we all shitting on Theseus when he was just trying to do right by his people who were getting regularly murdered. Sees the Moirae, who tell her a bunch of cryptic shit, and, you know, surprisingly don't bring up anything about her chastity. Huh, that's weird. They insinuate it's not the end for her. She sees her brother Asterion, who's no longer a Minotaur, and they like, you know, share a moment. She causes a general ruckus in Hades' domain, so by the time she comes upon Hades and Persephone's like, let her the fuck out of here before she does a bunch more damage. She goes back to the regular world and back to Dionysus, and they live happily ever after. That's it. Also, this book was supposed to end with an excerpt from the author's next book, which, if I had to guess, is probably about Daedalus, am I saying that right? And Icarus, who we never saw after they escaped at 20%. So I would guess it's about them. I'm not sure. I had so many questions and we were sitting in like the same spots for so long. What was her long-term plan? Zeus and Hera could not find out like ever that she did not like worship Dionysus. They were going to be married forever until she dies. Like, we were 58% through and I still didn't understand what her long-term goals were. And I wrote that down. I didn't understand what her long-term goals were the whole book. Like, even at 100%, I'm like, wait, what was going to be her plan? Does she have none? Then why are we not having a conversation about the fact that she has resigned herself to this forever in the name of safety? What's stopping her from actually being his wife and taking on that relationship and actually worshiping him and not just having it be a ruse? It's not temporary, so why don't you just be his wife? Why don't you want to worship him? You don't seem all that attached to the Moirae. What's wrong with worshiping Dionysus also? Normally when you do fake marriage, you're like, there's like an end goal and you're gonna like plan a way out by then. There is no planning a way out. If she tries to plan a way out, Zeus and Hera, who are literal gods, will kill her. I just don't understand like how this wasn't even like a fake marriage. Like, you're real married. Why don't you just be real married? What ruse is there to keep up? I didn't really understand the stakes here. And like, Dionysus was already game to marry her, which I still don't understand how he was just like instantly in love with her. Zeus is fickle about adding Dionysus to the pantheon because Hera is a dick. Him being fickle is something that I know is normal, and I get that. In that case, why does he suffer the Cretans to live when he's willing to fuck with his own pretty dangerous wife and son? Speaking of which, he makes a sexual comment at some point to Ariadne and kisses her, and this pisses off Dionysus. And again, this sort of like flippant behavior makes sense because they like say that they see human beings as things. So again, if she's just a thing, then assumedly Cretans are also things. So what is stopping him from not letting them live? What's stopping him from wiping them out? I have not read a ton of Greek retellings. The only ones that I can think of that I've read are Punderworld, which is a graphic novel, which I fully understood everything that was going on here. It's just, you know, like your typical Persephone and Hades relationship, but it was like really sweetly done and I really loved the artwork and like I understood the story. Neon Gods is a story that I mostly understand, except the way that the real world, the Greek myth retellings got transferred into real world, I felt like was not explained in a way that I understood. This sort of has that problem where that did not get understood, but then like the basic lore where like the Neon Gods did not have all this like religious shit. None of the religious shit got explained here. I have a couple of other Greek retellings that I'm planning on reading. One is Medea, which comes out in February. I got an arc from the publisher, which is Atria, and this is about like the most hated woman in Greek mythology, but like what if the story was different than how you were told it. And then I also have a copy of Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, which is also about Ariadne and Theseus. I have heard that this one is good from a friend of mine, so I'm hopeful that I will like this one better than I like Crown of Starlight, because I'm not, even though I have very little information and understanding about Greek myth beyond like Percy Jackson and Punderworld, I would like to find Greek mythology retellings that I jive with, that are actually like in like adult novel form. Crown of Starlight was not it for me. If you have anything that's like Punderworld but in novel, not graphic novel format, can you let me know? Jesus. So I have Ariadne. I will try this one by Jennifer Saint. Obviously I want to try Madeline Miller's books. I have hope that I will find adult Greek myth retellings, hopefully ones with some magic that I will like. I do prefer like fantasy with magic over sci-fi out in space. I do prefer one over the other, so I think that that may have had a little bit to do with why I didn't like Crown of Starlight, but also like the sci-fi was so underdone. It felt almost pointless. Like it felt like, oh shit, I forgot this was sci-fi. Let me squeeze some sci-fi shit in here. I'm like, we don't have to. We just leave it out. So I didn't like this. If I have to rate it, I mean, I appreciate like the queerness. I guess maybe I would give it a 2 if I'm being nice. I didn't really like it. The only person I liked in this book was Artemis. And that probably has something to do with the fact that my cat's name is Artemis. All right, that's it. That's what I have to say about Crown of Starlight. Leave your comments and questions down below. Check out the authors who were targeted by CAIT CORRAIN, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons first and foremost. Happy like end of the year to y'all, especially. I really appreciate when I started that Patreon tier. It was a joke. I didn't expect anybody to actually sign up for it, and I'm really thankful to y'all. So I'm thankful to all of you for being here. I'm gonna cry. All right, we're not gonna do this today. All right, thank you for being a friend to Alexander, Brittany Bobitney, Cami, Chris, Des Roberts, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, Jack and Jill, John E, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Caitlin M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lex, Night Owl Reader, Alice, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlett, Shiny, SMK, and the epic feminist side-eye of Carlos, aka Peggy. Thank you all so much for being a friend. And last but not least, thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are AM Angel, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ashley H, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blythe, Bookish Bats, Bookish Brainrot, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, oh Jesus. Sorry, Carlin, Casper, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Corey, Darren, Deborah, Dex, Diet Goth, Dorian, Dorothea, Ebby, Ember, Emerald Dodge, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Aaron, Ezra Moon, Hannah C, Hannah T, Harpy Kuro, Haley G, Ilianaka, India Inks, JM Tennant, Janae, Jay is on Olympus, JT, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jillian, Jojo Bookish, Just Pugsley, Kaylee, Kat, Catherine, Katie, Katya, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, Kylie, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lisa B, LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Marcella, Marquita, Melara, MK Books, Molly, James, Nat, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pixel Stars, Rachel B, Rat Sarah, Reba, Rebecca, Rivi, Robin L, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Secoria, Sadie, Samantha M, Sarah C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Talia, 3 Old Dogs, Tiana, Tina, Toast, Trash Can Teddy, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much again for being a friend.